guy, that's probably what he's going to try to do. Go for that knee. But I still got Santos. I don't care. I got Santos.
It's gonna be a good fight.
But we got the next matchup on the card, which is a lightweight matchup between Islam Makhachev versus Drew Dober, where Makhachev is easily the minus 360 favorite, and Dober is the plus 280 underdog. How do you feel about this, Lou?
I don't feel good for Mr. Drew Dober. Right now, Islam. This is a bad one for me. Makhachev, whatever. Islam. Basically, he's baby Khabib right now. He's gonna try to maul you. He's gonna try to just wear you out with the wrestling, but ground and pound. He can strike. He's got power. He can knock you down. He put you on your butt. But he's looking to just completely wear you out. The same way, he's teammates with Khabib. Khabib, is in his corner a lot of the time. So, he's baby Khabib. He's 5-0 in his last five. This kid is just a monster right now. Mr. Dober, he's also he's an all-around fighter. He's an all-around fighter. He can knock you out. He can submit you. He's coming off 3 straight KOs. So that he's not a slouch. He's not a slouch. But right now, I just see with the way Khabib is on top of the world, even though he's retired, and Islam learning directly from Khabib, from the master. He hasn't shown any kinks in his armor in any of his outings in the UFC. He's just a mauler, man. And I always joked around. I called Khabib. He was an ox. He's an ox. He's a bull. He's just an animal. He's just gonna wear you out. And Islam is showing signs of that very aspect that Khabib showed, and it's tough to bet against that style of fighting. You take it back to the first UFC when it was the Gracies. What did they do? They wore you out. They put you in a chokehold. They look for the armbar. And wrestling, a fantastic top tier wrestler in the UFC or an MMA period is always going to have the advantage against anybody else. You have to be a superior, out of this world striker to even consider putting fear in a superior wrestler's heart. So I see Islam I see him wearing this kid out. And it's not to take away from Dober and his abilities, because he's a fantastic fighter in his own right. But I don't see it. Baby Khabib is gonna, he's gonna take this, and it's gonna look easy, I think.
What about you, Miles?
So I agree with most of what you said. See, this is interesting because now we're seeing a new generation of fighters coming out of Russia with Sambo. People didn't really know what the fuck Sambo was for a long, long time. And you're right. There was like this trend where in very beginning of UFC, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was the big thing. It was basically a marketing campaign for fucking Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So everybody's like, damn, that's the thing I got to learn if I want to be successful. And then once everybody's learning Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, then all these, real experienced wrestlers came in, and they had this very heavy, dominant topside game that would just smash through their front guards and their half guards and shit. And they were like, oh, wow, that sucks. I guess I got to be able to wrestle too, because not only were they good on the ground, they could take you from the cage and put you in a really shitty position where you couldn't work. So, that became the wrestling thing became the big trend. The NCAA, the All-American guys, they were doing really well. And now we got the Sambo guys who are like the best of both worlds, because Sambo isn't just wrestling. It's a very unique flavor of wrestling that's closer to like catch wrestling, where they involve all the submissions and stuff. So that's I think the newest guy to come on stage with this Sambo thing is Makhachev. I think is how you say that. Makhachev.
Beautiful,
I feel like
beautiful word.
Yeah, I nailed it. Got it. But yeah, even besides the Sambo, he's got the kickboxing. So he's got the technique. He's a decently powerful fighter, but I think his strategy is more similar to like Khabib's in terms of power, where he's adding up punches overtime, and then it leads to a knockout. Which is why when you look at his stats, he doesn't have like a staggering number of knockout victories. It's more like weighted towards your decision victories and your submission victories. But he's not a bad striker by any means. He's very patient. He picks those opportunities and he builds steam as the fight goes on. And again, the unique thing about Sambo in particular is it's not just like a wrestling style and a submission style. It's a wrestling style that specializes in taking away your opponent's options. You know, with Khabib and his leg lock thing that nobody had really seen until Khabib showed up, and they're like, "Oh, what's he doing there?" And then they figured out, "Oh, he's doing that because strikers can then do nothing. You just got to sit there and be at his mercy until he's like, all right, do I want to submit him? Do I want to let him up? Do I want to just try to land some punches and wear him out?" It's a very effective style of wrestling that I think Drew Dober is not really ready for. When you look at his credentials, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, some Muay Thai, some high school wrestling. So like if it goes all the way to the ground and he's in a good position where he's in a comfortable guard and he can work, he might have some options, sure. When he's on his feet, he's got the power punches, but he's not as technically proficient. Again, he's kind of like Thiago Santos with more of the swinging involved to generate power, rather than just being like more of a technical boxer and just using your body to generate the power. So I think, with Khabib, or not Khabib's, Makhachev's kickboxing, he's going to kind of pick apart the guard, find those opportunities to wear him down in striking, and then capitalize on that into takedown opportunities, put him on the ground, take away his options. And yeah, that's pretty much how this fight's going to go. So that's why I'm thinking overall, we're probably going to see this go to a decision victory with Makhachev, just like I said, wearing him down as the fight goes on, putting him on the ground, taking away his options, racking up the scorecards as the fight wears on until eventually it's a decision. And in the same process, of course, he could go for submissions if he wants them, just depending on, where his mind's at during the fight, if he's looking for that sort of thing, or if he's just willing to go the distance and watch Drew Dober just peter out as, he makes him work overtime in areas that he's maybe not necessarily the strongest. But the one path to victory I potentially see here for Dober is if he can keep this fight at striking range and he can be patient and not load those big shots and miss and then create opportunities for Makhachev. He has the potential to land those big power shots, add them up to a KO. Even just the one lucky shot is kind of all he needs here. But he's got to walk a razor's edge. That's the drawback. You can't make that many mistakes. Otherwise Makhachev's just going to capitalize and your whole strategy kind of falls apart. So that's why I'm leaning definitely towards Makhachev. I think he's got just more options here, either, by decision, submission. But in terms of striking power, I give it to Dober with the potential for a knockout here.
This one's interesting because I see this closer than everybody else does.
Really?
Of course, Makhachev is going to be the favorite, and he's going to be the hot pick. We got Drew Dober. He fights out Team Elevation. Everybody knows about all the fighters that fight out of there. They got that wrestling background, of course. Then you got Makhachev, who fights out AKA. Just like Miles said, you got the Sambo. Well, the fighters they pressure forward to use the momentum of their opponent against them, so it's easier to get the takedowns. When you're moving backwards, it's harder to defend. But one of Dober's things that he excels at is his defensive wrestling skills. He's really good at defending the takedown, and then he has that wrestling background, so he kind of uses it to his advantage. And then another thing that I see him using, he's really good at combination striking. He knows how to land the combinations, and instead of just hitting a punch, pulling out, he knows how to go punch, 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 or punch, kick. I still think Makhachev has the advantage, but I don't think it's that far off. I think it will wind up being 2 rounds to 1. I think it's going to be tied going into the third round. What I see is that Makhachev just going with the Sambo takedowns, but he's going to get stopped a few times. It's kind of going to be like Lewis stopping Blades. You're not going to expect it, but you should, because Dober has improved his all-around game since he came in. He wasn't that great when he came in, and then it must have been the past 4 or 5 fights. He's shown a dramatic improvement in his wrestling, his defense, his striking, just overall. And then, just like you said, he's on a win streak, so he's on a high right now. I give the edge to Makhachev, but I wouldn't be surprised if Dober would be able to pull out a knockout. I wouldn't be surprised because he's going to have the advantage when it comes to striking. because of the combinations, which might be able to slow down Makhachev.
D-Big, I like what you were saying now. A lot of people, I think, are counting out Dober a little bit too soon. But at the same time, as Miles was saying, a guy like Makhachev, a prodigy of Khabib, those Russian guys with that Sambo, they take away all of your options. So pretty much all Dober is a fantastic defensive wrestler. But when you're relying on that and you're relying on your striking, all Dober needs to be perfect. The best way to put it is Dober needs to be perfect for 25 or 15 minutes. It's a 3-round fight. Makhachev needs one takedown, just as Khabib did, and he's going to control you against the fence, and he's going to put a pace on you, and he's going to pressure you, and you're not going to be able to maintain that. You're not going to be able to get off the ground, and he's just going to keep piling on points. Same way, same style as Khabib, same way, and the McGregor fight's a perfect example of it. As good of a striker as he is, counter puncher, kind of similar to Dober, big power puncher. If he gets one takedown on you, he's going to ride you out. You're going to lose all of your energy. Your punch are going to have less pop. So even if you do get up, you're not the same fighter as when you started round 1, minute 1, you know? Yeah. It's an interesting fight, though, because Dober's very underrated. He's coming off of 3 knockout wins in a row. So you do never know, but I'd say Makhachev is going to come out with a decision win and just pressure him the entire time, put his back on the ground, keep him up against the cage, pop him with punches, and then just give him 0 options, much like Miles said.
Yeah. And one more thing, because I heard you say this last time, or my finger should be like in this direction, I guess. I'm getting used to the mirror thing. But D-Bake, I heard you say it once before, and I let it go because I was like, no. But this time I think it's more egregious when you said this is comparable to like Lewis Blades knockout, right? Or the Lewis Blades fight. The reason Blades got knocked out, we had a whole thing about this. It was Curtis Blades was just not setting up those takedowns at all. Like he was literally just sticking his head down and running in, and then all Derek Lewis had to do was like, oh, I got to do the punch now. Okay. And like when they were in the interview, he literally said, my plan is just hit him when he comes in. Like that's not a strategy. It's a technique that it happened to work this time, but I don't think Makhachev is going to be like, oh, let me do a takedown real quick.
Well, I mean, I meant 30 seconds in when he went to take him down, and Derek Lewis defended it, and then he kept him from taking him down right there.
Yeah, he didn't set that takedown up either. He didn't set up any of them. Like he really just went from like punching, and then he kind of paused for a second, and he was like, "Oh, I'm going to shoot." And then Derek Lewis saw it coming, because usually what you're supposed to do, you're supposed to cut angles, you're supposed to hide it behind your punches, you're supposed to set it up with your kicks, so that way they're thinking about something else. And then right when they make a move to, if you like fake or if they go to slip or something like that, that's your opportunity to shoot. Curtis Blades wasn't doing that. He was just like, okay, shoot. Oh, damn, that didn't work. Back to punching. Okay, shoot again. Oh, damn, I didn't do it either. Like, it's very, very different from, I think, Makhachev's style, especially when he's learning from Khabib. That was one of the things Khabib was excellent at, was transitioning from striking to grappling, especially when he knew he was outclassed in striking, whether it's technical proficiency or power. He would use the striking to set up his takedowns very, very well, and he would draw in that step that they shouldn't have made, that back step they shouldn't have made, that slip that made their body weight shift towards the back instead of towards the front, and he'd capitalize on it. And that's, I think, what we're going to see here with Drew Dober as well.
I want to put past, though, Dober's defense, though, the takedown, because that's one of his bread and butters lately, is defending the takedown. And
well, sure, he's got defense. Sure, I'll give him that. But
again, I don't think it's. I think people just think, oh, it's Sambo, so it's going to be a foregone conclusion that he's going to get the takedowns, and then that's going to be it. We just watched it this week with Anklev against Krylov, where Anklev he's a Sambo. He's a master in Sambo, and he got taken down in the first round, and Krylov was able to win the first round.
Sure.
It happens.
I think that one was a little closer than this fight, though, in terms of like grappling proficiency. Yeah. Like I think the Krylov was more of a proficient grappler relative to Ankalaev than Dober is to Makhachev. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, right. I just see if you could defend it, and then if Dober can get the combinations going, he can slow Makhachev down. He'll be able to slow it down. It's just that he's going to have to be able to withstand all the pressuring of Makhachev with the pushing forward. That's going to be, if he can't, he's going to have no chance. But if he can withstand half of it, he'll have a chance.
I mean, what's
Yeah, and it
interesting
just goes
is
back to what I
Dober.
was saying too a little
Yeah,
bit.
go ahead,
Oh,
man.
I'm sorry, Miles. I
No,
just
you
had to
good.
slide this in there that I just think that first of all, I'm shocked that you two are putting it a little closer than, I don't know. Like I said, when you are so far in the head superior at something, it doesn't matter what the other guy brings. Now, the UFC and MMA is a totally different animal. Whereas, again, that puncher's chance always exists. You could shoot, miss, and somebody hits you with a knee or something like that. You could shoot and miss, and somebody gets your arm, guillotine or something like that. But I think that with how do you pronounce it,
Yeah.
Makhachev, being under the tutelage of Khabib, that's just something that can't be underwritten because whatever Khabib is doing, he's learning from him, and you just can't. And the way he's looked, the way that he has been mauling everybody else too, akin to what Khabib has been doing, it's just it's tough to say I don't care what Dober can bring to the
Mhm.
octagon, but it's just when you tally all that, it's just he's just so up here right now that it's just tough to even consider that Dober's going to even sniff a win in this fight. You know what I mean?
I,
And that just
Yeah.
again goes to learning from Khabib because Khabib is the man right now.
yeah, I think Jay has a point too. Makhachev hasn't been in the octagon in a long time, so and
Very true.
Dober's been active, so
Sure, but then you got to take into account if he's out of the octagon, who's he training with? Because that's usually the downfalls. If you're not in the octagon regularly, you don't have as challenging opponents and like sparring partners or like who you're at with the gym. He's in the gym with Khabib. He's in the gym with Khabib and Khabib's sparring partners. So I don't know if
Mhm.
ring rust is as much of a problem for him just because of who he's coming from and who he's got around him helping him out. You know what I mean? It would be different if he was like at some rando gym in Russia where the guy, half the time brings in like, hey, this kid from that gym down the street seems all right. Let's have him spar with you for a little bit. It's not quite the same.
he could. That's where he could sneak out though, like the first round where Dober could sneak that out because he's been fighting more recently. He can sneak out the first round and then Makhachev then gets his game going because he's
Mhm.
broken the rust off in the first round, and then he gets
Sure.
the next two. So
I think that might work both ways, right? Because I think Dober is going to have to come out strong in the first round. I think the first round is going to set the tone for the rest of the fight, just especially in this matchup, more so than some of the other ones we're looking at. But at the same time, Makhachev's coaches are telling him that. That's part of the game plan. They're going to be like, all right, first round, he's gonna want to finish this up early. He's gonna come out strong with those punches. He's gonna want to put you away because he's afraid of your wrestling. He don't want to take this to a position where you've got the superiority. So how do we plan for that? And in coaching and in MMA in general, a lot of the time it comes down to how good is your coach at developing strategies to be successful in the ring. And then it's a question of how good is your fighter at executing those strategies. He's got both components. He's got excellent coaches behind him creating excellent strategies. And we've seen him execute in the ring very, very well. So I think he's got as much of an advantage as any fighter who can have, who hasn't necessarily been fighting regularly, going up against a guy like Drew Dober, who's been in the ring more often than Makhachev at this point.
That's a good point, Miles, because even with the Conor and Poirier fight, Mike Brown, who's Poirier's head coach, was the one who told him to go after the calf, attack the calf, and go ahead with the calf kicks. And
I love
Poirier,
that. Yeah.
like I said before, Poirier executed that to perfection, and that played the biggest factor in that fight. That took away Conor's power. It got him thinking about something else. And we saw as time went on in that fight, by every minute or two, you saw how debilitating that calf kick was to Conor, and it took probably 90% of his game away. And then we saw how that played out. That's a great point that you make, how the coaches can come up with these strategies and game plans, and if their fighter can execute it, it makes a world of difference in the fight game.
This is what's great about the matchups is it's not just the fighters, it's also the coaches and how they talk to their fighter and then get them to adjust to what's going on in the octagon. Because if no one's telling them to do something, they're just going to go along with whatever they were doing. But the coach will come and be like, "Oh, you need to do this. You need to change this up," and then they go and do it. It's like a whole camp thing. It's not just one guy against one guy.
Oh yeah.
You could probably be a worse fighter than your opponent, but because of your camp and then your coaches, they can make you better by telling you what you need to do, and then help you out in the fight. We got Jay saying, but he's AKA a top 3 organization even without Habib. He said Habib's been traveling lately and hasn't spent a lot of time in camp with Makhachev. And then Vincenza said, no, Vincenza is watching you.
That's my grandmother.